What I want is an off-the-shelf sex partner. I want to be able to use a woman whenever and however I want. And when I'm tired or satiated or bored or not interested, I simply want to put her away, lock her up in a little room, get her out of my sight, out of my life, and thus avoid what heretofore has always been the obligation to entertain or amuse or satisfy a particular woman or girlfriend's whims of emotional whatevers. Such an arrangement, of course, is not only blatantly sexist, but highly illegal. There's no doubt about it. It violates all of the human rights and blah, 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 blah. I'm going to spare posterity my concepts of other people's morality. I'm explaining my morality, what I feel, what I want. And as of this moment, I'm going to try to get it.
What's up, you guys? So today I'm out here in South San Francisco, and we're gonna go back to June 2nd, 1985.
Up until this point, we've really relied on our imaginations to visualize this story. But today we have pictures that will probably leave many people with an everlasting image of the horror that occurred at the end of this road. These are some of the bone fragments that have been found, and investigators say there are countless fragments just like those scattered over a third of an acre here. The California Conservation Corps has been recruited to pick up the bones. Most of them worked on their hands and knees, raking the ground with their fingers. Investigators came up with 10 pounds of bones. The local coroner says 5 bodies have been found here so far. The Calaveras County Sheriff once told me, though, he believes there are as many as 20 victims, though, buried on the property.
So if you're a fan of true crime, I'm sure you have heard of Leonard Lake and Charles Ng. Okay, so I first heard about Leonard Lake and Charles Ng back in 2010 when I had my internship actually at San Quentin prison. So ever since then, I've kind of just followed the story and have researched a little bit and been intrigued by it. So basically, Leonard Lake was a middle-aged guy, kind of like a survivalist type of dude that wanted to go against the government, things like that. Former Marine, got medically discharged because of schizophrenia, and kind of strange, sick guy. Okay, so that's kind of his backstory. So Charles Ng, immigrant from Hong Kong, he came over to the U.S. in the late 70s. And when he came over, he enlisted in the Marines as well, but that didn't last long because he was actually caught stealing some firearms. So he was actually dishonorably discharged. So I'm not sure if he actually escaped military prison or he was being charged with it and fled somehow, but somehow he ended up meeting Leonard Lake through a survivalist magazine or something like that. So they kind of feed off each other's sick energy. So basically they committed some of the most unthinkable things you can even think of. Torturing families, using women as sex slaves, killing their babies right in front of them, putting them in the microwave and just making them watch it. Just disgusting things. So besides all the bones they dug up, human remains, pictures they found, they also recorded the whole thing. So just a warning, if you don't want to watch it, go ahead and skip this part.
Will you let us know?
Probably not.
Why are you doing this?
Because we hate you.
Yeah.
Your baby is going to be taken away. Excuse me.
I'm going to be taken away.
There's a family down in Fresno that doesn't have a baby.
You're not taking my baby.
Son and the baby's dead,
I
right?
mean, they got one now. That's my baby.
Your baby is sound asleep, like a rock. You're... We don't like you. Would you like me to put it in writing?
It's done. Just stick to whatever we tell you.
It leads me to think that you're even attempting to make noise. It's immaterial as to whether I hear you or anyone else here should. You will be whipped very severely. And tell me you understand. You'll wash for us, you'll clean for us, cook for us, you'll for us. That's your choice in a nutshell. It's not much of a choice. Unless you've got a death wish.
Here I am today outside of South City Lumber and Supply. Okay, so on June 2nd, 1985, Leonard Lake and Charles Ng found themselves here at South City Lumber and Supply. So Charles Ng got caught stealing some type of vise, which is some type of work tool or something like that. And the employees called the police on him. But of course, before they got there, Charles Ng got away again. But before he fled, he actually threw the vise in the back of a car. So when police arrived at the scene, they were immediately approached by Leonard Lake, claiming that it was his friend that took the vise. It was some big misunderstanding. So Leonard Lake tried to use his privilege, I guess you can say, and get Charles Ng out of this situation where he got caught stealing. But it actually backfired on him. So when police were searching the vehicle for the vise that Charles Ng took, they actually came across a pistol with a silencer attached. So Leonard Lake was arrested for the pistol and the illegal silencer. So while Leonard Lake was actually being questioned by authorities about the pistol, he actually had snuck in some cyanide pills into the interrogation room, and he ended up taking those and dying 4 days later. So that's pretty much all that happened with him. So naturally, police started investigating the incident even more. So it turns out the vehicle that Leonard Lake was driving was the vehicle of a missing man who had been missing for the past 7 months. So detectives got a search warrant for Leonard Lake's cabin, which is about 130 miles away from this location. So the location where Charles Ng and Leonard Lake actually committed most of their heinous crimes was in a town called, I believe it's Williesville. So today we're not going to get over there because it's about 3 hours away from here, but I will eventually get up there. But today this is just going to be the location I cover. So now with Leonard Lake dead, authorities now try to narrow in on Charles Ng, but he had already skipped out of town. So it turns out they got a tip that he was in Canada, and it wasn't long before he had his encounter with Canadian authorities. So I guess he was in a department store up there, and he got caught stealing again. So he definitely had a problem with theft. So this time he actually got approached by security, got in some kind of altercation, pulled out a gun, and the security guard ended up getting shot in the hand. But this time, Charles Ng actually got arrested for it. So U.S. authorities went up to Canada to try and extradite Charles Ng back to California for the murders he committed with Leonard Lake, so he can be charged with that. But I guess the U.S. and Canada have some type of agreement that a person can't get extradited back to the U.S. if they're facing the death penalty, which in this case, Charles Ng was facing the death penalty. So he had to complete his 4.5-year prison sentence in Canada before he can be extradited back to the U.S. to face trial for the murders he committed with Leonard Lake. So now we're in the early 90s. So finally, he's extradited back to the U.S. Now, he finds another loophole and continuously keeps firing his attorneys. So it's just delaying the whole process. So now, finally, the trial starts. And it's not all the way until 1999 that Charles Ng is ultimately convicted and, of course, sentenced to death. So this was 14 years or so after Leonard Lake committed suicide and they were caught for their crimes that they did. So it took all that time for the trial to conclude, and still until this day, Charles Ng is still on death row as of 2023. That's going to do it from South San Francisco. Thank you for tuning in today. I definitely want to get more videos up. I'm going to be a little more consistent on this, but make sure you like and subscribe.